Good morning, students. We resume the lecture. In the last part of the story, yesterday, I had talked about how a toothbrush can create anxiety amongst people, especially who dread if that particular product is not available at the place where you go. And then if you forget to pack your toothbrush, how on earth are you going to manage? So this very thought was so nerve-wracking for the author that it kept on ringing in his mind whether or not, creating a doubt whether or not he had packed his toothbrush or not. So let's proceed further and see what all chaos takes place furthermore. My toothbrush is a thing that haunts me when I am traveling and makes my life a misery. So it really haunts that the thought of he not packing the toothbrush continuously haunts him, creating a doubt in his mind whether or not he had kept it. I dream that I haven't packed it and wake up in a cold perspiration and get out of the bed and hunt for it. So whenever in his sleep also he remembers or he has a doubt whether or not he has packed this particular toothbrush, he wakes up with great nervousness. And when you're nervous or you wake up with a jerk, you start perspiring, gives you cold shivers, the very thought of it that you have forgotten something to pack. And in the morning, I pack it before I have used it. So when you get up early with a jerk, you pack it. Little did you realize that you had to brush your teeth. So before you brushing only, you packed it. And have to unpack again to get it. So when he realized that he had to brush his teeth, he unpacks the bag and pulls it out. And it is always the last thing I turn out of the bag. And then I repack and forget it. So when he takes it out, when everything is packed and he pull out one thing, then it's difficult to remember whether he put it back or not. That entire process is so tedious. And I have to rush upstairs for it at the last moment to carry it to the railway station wrapped up in my pocket handkerchief. Now when you remember something to be packed, something was to be packed at the last moment, now you can't shove it in your bag. So what do? You just wrap it in some handkerchief and keep it in your pocket. Imagine a toothbrush being carried in a pocket. Of course, I had to turn every mortal thing out now, and of course I could not find it. Now mortal thing is every ordinary thing which those people had packed, which he had packed, the author had packed. He had to turn everything upside down to look for it, and then after turning it upside down, he did not find it. I rummaged the things up into much the same state that they must have been before the world was created, when chaos reigned. Now here, rummage means if you are searching for something very frantically and you desperately need it, so what do? Very patiently pull out things and keep them in a very appropriate order? No, you just pull off everything to see where that particular thing is there. So he says over here, he pulled off everything in such a way that earlier, whatever stage it was in before he had packed it, it became much more worse than that. And he says the things could have been compared to the way they were before the world had been created and the chaos reigned. Here, reign means to be the dominant feature of a situation or of a place. So at that time when world was just beginning, like the world's creation was just coming into existence, at that time also it was a chaotic situation. So he compares the situation with that particular time. Of course, I found George's and Harris's 18 times over, but I couldn't find my own. So he found the other two boys' toothbrushes, but he couldn't find his own. I put the things back one by one and held everything up and shook it. Then I found it inside a boot. I repacked once more. So at last, when he totally emptied it and then he turned it upside down and shook it, he did find the toothbrush, and it was inside a boot. Imagine toothbrush inside a boot. So he had to repack the entire thing which he had packed. When I had finished, George asked if the soap was in. Now, friends will be friends. They will leave no stone unturned to ruin your life. I said I didn't care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't, and I slammed the bag shut and strapped it, and found that I had packed my spectacles in it and had to reopen it. Now, when you are very, very irritated by something, so you care a damn now whether or not you have missed out on things. He's come to the situation, he's come to the verge of getting really mad at his friends. Said, I care a damn now whether or not I have packed this soap or not. Little did he realize in that moment of anxiety, he had packed his spectacles in. He had to again open the bag to pull them out. It got shut up finally at 10:05 p.m. And then there remained the hampers to do. Now, hampers are the food baskets. Harris said that we should be wanting to start in less than 12 hours time, and thought that he and George had better do the rest. And I agreed and sat down, and they had a go. Now, looking at this fellow's condition, the other two friends decide that they would pack the hampers, the food basket. Now, readily the author says, yes, you can go ahead. And he just wants to take a break from that packing process, and he sits aside. They began in a light-hearted spirit, evidently intending to show me how to do it. Now, light-hearted spirit means to begin in a very casual manner, not taking things to your heart and not allowing anxiety to overpower you. What did they intend to do is they wanted to show their friend that things shouldn't be done in a nervous temperament. We need to keep our mind soothing and calm so that it works properly. That was their intention, to show, okay, see how do we work now. I made no comment. Now, those who are very, very smart and I would say very, very sorted out, these people will never comment before things happen. So he wanted to see what these two people do. So he never passed any comment at all. I only waited. With the exception of George, Harris is the worst packer in the world. Out of the comparison, like when you compare the two friends, Harris is the worst packer in the entire world, which is being declared by the author. And I looked at the piles of plates, cups, kettles, bottles, jars, pies, stubs, cakes, tomatoes. All these things had to be packed, because in olden days you wouldn't be getting canteen and something like that, or free. When you are in a train, you definitely, if we talk about a little bit earlier age, you wouldn't have pantries and all, so you had to carry your food, and these many items had to be packed, and felt that the thing would soon become exciting. Now, he knew that so many things had to be packed, and especially when you pack food, you ought to be very cautious where to keep what, because the most wanted thing has to be kept handy, and you have to see what is the nature of that food, whether it is mushy or whether it is fibrous or whether it's hard. You can keep it, store it somewhere nicely. So you have to layer them properly so that they don't break or they don't get squashed under something. So you have to be very cautious in this process. It did. They started with breaking a cup. So the first thing they did is they broke a cup. That was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you what they could do and to get you interested. Now, he knew that his friends were half-fuzzled. Now, he knew that it wasn't their piece of cake over there to happily finish their job and boast in front of the friend and see how good we were at the job. He knew pretty well that they were not good at it. So, this is the first, only the initial step where they mess it up. Then Harris packed the strawberry jam on the top of a tomato and squashed it. So, jam bottle on the top of a tomato, obviously it's going to get squashed. And they had to pick out the tomato with a teaspoon. Because it has got squashed, they scoop it out with a teaspoon. And then it was George's turn, and he trod on the butter. Now, trod on means the butter was kept down and he stepped on it. Now imagine, butter and you stepping on it. Obviously, it's going to create a mess on the ground. But I came over, I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of the table and watched them. So the author is having now his part of the hearty laugh. Though he's not showing his happiness, but it tickles his funny bone, saying that I'll be a part of watching them mess it. It irritated them more than anything I could have said. So they were on the receiving end right now. When he was working, they were laughing. Now they are on the receiving end because he is not even laughing at them, but he's continuously watching them do things and he's not a part of that act. So it's irritating them. It made them nervous and excited, and they stepped on things and put things behind them and then couldn't find them when they wanted them, and they packed the pies at the bottom and put heavy things on top and smashed the pies in. So pies are supposed to be delicate items, food items. They are supposed to be kept with no weight on them, or a little weight on them is okay. But they kept it at the bottom. They kept things at the back, and they couldn't find them while they had to pack it. They upset salt over everything, and as for the butter, upset salt means they accidentally spread salt everywhere. Actually, upset salt over here means a situation of when somebody is very, very angry or nervous. So you do certain things when you are nervous. So instead of keeping the salt handy, they accidentally spread it all over. And with the butter, what can be done? Let's see. I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. So he's saying a minimal amount of butter, okay, which would not cost more than 1 or 2 pence. But you can do such a lot of variety with that butter. These people were making it evident that with this amount of butter also, with this quantity of butter also, what all we can do, and let's see what all did they do. After George had got it off his slipper, now that butter was on his slipper, they tried to put it in a kettle. Now butter in a kettle, it wouldn't go in, and that was in wouldn't come out. So whatever they tried to put inside the kettle, that wouldn't go in firstly, and whatever went in couldn't come out. Kettle is supposed to boil water to make tea and coffee. And how do you put butter in? What would you do by putting butter in a kettle? They did scrape it out at last and put it down on a chair. So they scraped off the butter what they had managed to put in the kettle, and they kept it on the chair. Who keeps butter on a chair now? And Harris sat on it, and it stuck to him, and they went looking for it all over the room. Now when a person sits on something and it gets attached to it clings onto the clothes of the person, and the person is roaming around happily, and he doesn't know that there's butter clinging onto his body, and they both are looking for the butter. This was what they could do with the butter. Imagine, as he says, maximum 1 or 2 pence is the amount of the butter what they had paid, and this variety of amusement what he got by doing variety of things over there with the butter actually left him very, very I would say in a situation where he couldn't laugh at them, nor was he able to retain it within him. So the rest of the lesson, let's do it in the next lecture. Thank you, dear.